Why do mothers and daughters fight, and more importantly, what can be done about it? That's the topic of this video. That's what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. Just try to look at that mother-daughter relationship, and it is so characterized often, so frequently characterized by conflict. What happens? What's going on there? So that's what I'm going to talk about. So here's some B-roll for you to enjoy while I go get set up in a little more comfortable location. What led me to pick up this topic was in the past week I was around a former student, and while there's no real conflict going on right now, there's no conflict between her and her mom right now, there was some hints in the conversation that led me to think the day is fast approaching when there is going to emerge this conflict in that relationship. I first sort of took this on seriously as a topic of interest when I was a guidance counselor, and I began to see in my middle school and high school students, the females, a lot of really strong conflict and really strong feelings of conflict with their mother. So I wanted to look into that. And what I'm going to share here is not my original thoughts. This is sort of a synthesis of things that I studied that I'm going to try to present in a way that will lead to what can be done to sort of ease through this conflicted period. So the typical adolescent development is you go from pre-puberty to adulthood, and during that period of puberty and on, the human develops independence. Well, in the mother-daughter relationship, the dependence of the daughter on the mother has to change. It needs to take on a new dynamic. Growing up from birth until puberty and a little after puberty, the mother's role was primary caregiver, and that's not universally true, but it is widely true that in families the mother would be the primary caregiver. As an adult female, you don't need a primary caregiver anymore, and so that role of the mother needs to be something different. And what that role needs to become is that the mother becomes a same-sex role model, a mentor, an advisor, not a primary caregiver. Because the primary caregiver, whatever the primary caregiver says goes, and it's like, here's your bottle, the infant doesn't really have a choice. The 17, 16, 15-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, it's going to happen at some point, feels like she has a choice. And the conflict comes when the mother persists acting like the primary caregiver, and the daughter is no longer needing a primary caregiver, or thinks that she no longer needs a primary caregiver, but wants instead a same-sex role model. Now, there can be this dynamic between the boys and the moms is different, because if the boy is looking for a same-sex role model, it's not going to be the mother. So if it's the daughter and the mother, the natural tendency is for the daughter to realign the relationship with the mother to become not the primary caregiver, but the same-sex role model. And that's where the tension comes in, is the daughter is trying to change the relationship, and the mother is persisting in the relationship in the old way. So when the boy makes the shift from primary caregiver, the mother's attempts to remain primary caregiver are seen as, well, she's still trying to baby me, she's still trying to mother me, and I don't need that anymore, but it's okay, I can just move on. For the daughter who can't just move on, because the daughter is oftentimes trying to realign that relationship to let the mother become a model, there's a tension there between, I want to stay close to my mom, but I want my mom to change. And that's where this tension comes from. It is the natural tendency of the daughter to try to outgrow the need of a primary caregiver, and the mother's tendency to remain in the primary caregiver role. So what do you do about it? Well, first of all, a couple of don'ts. One don't is a mother is just like, well, you got to do it this way because I said so. That works for a while, but ultimately it's going to lead to resentment. It's going to lead to problems. And for the daughter, it's not like, well, I'm just going to move out and do things my own way. That's a possibility later on in the developmental process, but it's going to lead to some very serious consequences. Now, there is a mechanism for the daughter leaving and doing her own thing, and that could be called like going to college and getting a roommate, or moving out into an apartment and getting a roommate, but still being close to home and still being able, coming back and back and forth. And there's this transition period where a little bit of space and a little breathing room helps a lot. So what do you do? What is if the don'ts are my way or the highway, and the child's response is my way or I'm leaving, which is essentially the same thing. In order to not get to that point, what can the mother and the daughter both do? What can they do? Well, so daughters, realize that your mother is developing and changing just like you are, and she's learning the new role. And be a little bit patient and take a little deep breath and say, okay, I understand why she's treating me this way. I don't like it, but I understand that it's because she still sees me as her baby, and she still wants me to be taken care of, and she wants to be the one who does it. Mothers, what can you do? You need to understand that your daughter needs to develop independence. And so instead of saying things like, do it because I said so, you might want to say it like, here are some reasons and some factors you need to consider in your decision-making process. Now, there's a limit. If the child is living at home, and if you're the child living at home, there is a limit to that. There are things that as a parent, I was like, this is a deal breaker. You can't live in my house and do these things, because this is how I need my house to be. In order for me to be comfortable, and me to feel safe, and me to whatever, me to get some sleep at night, here's some things you can't do. We're living in community, and each member of the community has to share something. So it's not like the kid gets to just do whatever they want. So if you're the daughter, you don't get to just do whatever you want. But you do get to say, I have heard what you have said, and I have thought about the reasons that you have laid out, and I still feel like this course of action is the one I want to take. Now, you're never going to say it like that, but those are essentially the ideas that you're going to put forth, are that you acknowledge the input from the mother, and yet you have still factored things in a different priority, and this is the decision that you want to make. Now, if your daughter says something to you that sounds similar to that, you need to stop and think. Can I allow her to do her thing, or is this thing that she wants to do such a bad idea? I'm going to have to put my foot down and draw a line, and that's a judgment call. So try to bring this to a close, and bring it to a close quickly. The main reason for the conflict that inevitably comes somewhere after puberty, and somewhere along the way, this blows up, and it can be catastrophic, or it can be just a long period of slow grind contention, but eventually it happens. The reason it happens is the mother is trying to hold on to the primary caregiver role and continue to be the primary caregiver and principal decision maker, and the teenage girl, the adolescent girl, the young adult girl is trying to develop independence, and that's where the conflict comes from. To sum up what you do about it, listen carefully, and communicate your thoughts and feelings carefully. The communication process is the key to getting through this, and being able to explain your reasoning, and explain your wants, explain your wishes, to feel heard, to be heard, both directions. You both need to feel heard, you both need to feel attended to, you both need to feel respected, and then you can work through those conflicts. In the end, I saw this with my sister, I saw this with peers as they grew older, I saw this in the kids in the high school. By the time they were getting to their senior year, a lot of them had worked out this conflict, and that relationship had taken on a completely new dynamic. That the mother's role was no longer to bottle feed the child, but was to offer ideas and suggestions to the child, and that young, now no longer child, young adult would weigh those out and make sensible decisions from it. Try to do this fast, try to cover a lot of ground, try to cover a lot of things. If you have any comments or questions, please drop them down below. I'll try to respond to any of those that should appear. If you like this video, click the like button, share, subscribe to the channel for more life lessons and inspirational motivational videos, plus the occasional random weird thing. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you in the next episode.